Hello, I want to thank you again for joining us here on the Word of Truth. My name is Daniel, and I'll be the teacher for today, and reading today will be Brother Frank. And as always, we bring you some topic from the Bible, and the title of today's lesson is Good Friday, Easter, Pagan or Christian. According to mainstream tradition, people teach on the day that has become known as Good Friday. That is the day Jesus died and was put in the grave. And they say he rose on the day that has become known as Easter Sunday. And what we are going to do, we are going to look into the scripture and see if the Bible supports that. Let's start this lesson out in Matthew chapter 26. And we'll begin reading at verse 1. I'm going to just show you, because Jesus died on the Passover, and we're going to just read that. Now, start reading at Matthew chapter 26. And we'll begin reading at verse 1. Okay, go ahead and read, brother.
And it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these things, he said unto his disciples, Ye know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified.
Notice what he said here, is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. In other words, the Passover, that was one of God's feast days. He have them all named in Leviticus chapter 23. And we're going to go and just read about a couple of them. We're not going to deal with all of them, but you find them all here listed in this 23rd chapter of Leviticus. Because now, Jesus died on the Passover. If you read the scripture, he died on the Passover. He just said himself, after 2 days come the feast of the Passover, Son of Man betrayed to be crucified. Start reading at Leviticus chapter 23 and began reading at verse 4. Go ahead and read.
These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons.
Now, the Lord is saying these are his feasts here. And notice what and one that he named here is the Passover, as we read over in Matthew chapter 26. Now, let's see what follows the Passover. We're going to tell you what date that the Passover falls on, and then it's going to tell you what follows the Passover, because another feast day follows the Passover. Go ahead and read.
In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
Now, that would have been the day in which Jesus died on the 14th day of the first month, according to God's lunar calendar. So now, he died on the Passover day. Now, that was on the 14th day of the first month. Let's look at the 15th day of the first month, the very next day. Go ahead and read on.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord.
Go ahead.
7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. In the first day you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein.
Now, he said the very next day, the 15th day of the first month, is the feast of unleavened bread. That is the first day of the feast of unleavened bread. It lasts for 7 days. But the first day of the feast of unleavened bread is a holy convocation and is a Sabbath day. That's why he said you shall do no servile work therein. Remember, Jesus died on the Passover day, and the very next day after that is the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, which is a Sabbath day, and the Bible referred to it as a high Sabbath day. Let's go now and look at his crucifixion. Let's go to Mark chapter 15, and we'll begin reading at verse 25. Mark 15, and we'll pick it up at verse 25. 15 and 25. Okay, go ahead and read.
And it was the 3rd hour, and they crucified him.
Now, the 3rd hour, that would have been about 9 o'clock in the morning. That is when they put him on the cross, 3rd hour of the day, about 9 in the morning. Now, skip down to verse 33. Go ahead and read it.
And when the 6th hour was come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour.
Now, the 6th hour, that is about noon. And the 9th hour, that is about 3 in the afternoon. So now, from about noon till about 3 in the afternoon, then there was darkness over the face of the whole land. Go ahead and continue reading.
And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is, being interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Now, we're going to read a little later. That is when he died, about the ninth hour, which is about 3 in the afternoon. Skip down to verse 42. Go ahead and read.
And now, when the evening was come.
Now, when the evening, this is after 3 o'clock. Yes, but it is before sundown. We're going to find that out. So, the day ends at sundown. One day ends at sundown, and the next day begins at sundown. So, now it is the Passover. It is in the evening, but it's still before sundown, before we have gone into the next day. Go ahead and continue reading.
Because it was the preparation,
Uh-huh.
that is, the day before the Sabbath.
See, but it said because it was the preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath. The day before what Sabbath? The day before the high Sabbath. The day before the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. He died on the Passover. The very next day is the high Sabbath, the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Let's go and look at another account of his crucifixion. Let's go this time to Luke chapter 23 and begin reading at verse 44. Because we want to make this thing very clear here, people. We're going to show you when he died. We're going to show you when he rose from the dead. And that will tell us whether or not Good Friday and Easter is pagan or Christian. Because if it's Christian, then the Bible should support it. And if it's not, then we'll know it's pagan. Let's go to Luke chapter 23 and pick it up at verse 44. 23 and 44. Go ahead and read.
And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst.
Go ahead.
And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the ghost.
In other words, he died. This was around the 9th hour. So now they put him on the cross about 9 that morning. About noon it got dark. It remained dark until about 3 that afternoon. And about 3 that afternoon he died. They didn't take him off the cross yet. But now they skip down to verse 50. Go ahead and read on.
And behold, there was a man named Joseph, a counselor, and he was a good man and a just.
Go ahead.
The same had not consented to the counsel and deed of them. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the kingdom of God. This man went unto Pilate and begged the body of Jesus.
So now this is sometime after 3 o'clock. But it is before sundown. But it's sometime after 3 o'clock. Because he died about 3 that afternoon. Then Joseph came and begged the body of Jesus because he wanted to get him in the grave. And they want to get him in the grave before sundown. But we know it's after 3. But it's not sundown yet. Go ahead and read on.
And he took it down and wrapped it in linen.
Go ahead.
And laid it in a sepulchre that was hewn in stone, wherein never man before was laid.
Go ahead and read.
And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on.
And as we read over in Mark, it said before the Sabbath day.
Sir.
But the Sabbath was drawing near. What Sabbath day was drawing near? The high Sabbath day, the very next day after the Passover.
Yes, sir.
It was drawing near. So they got him in the grave before that high Sabbath.
Yes,
go ahead and read on.
And the women also, which came with him from Galilee, followed after, and beheld the sepulchre and how his body was laid.
Go ahead and read.
And they returned and prepared spices and ointments and rested the Sabbath day according to the command.
Notice what they did. They rested what Sabbath day? The high Sabbath day. Remember we read that you were not to do any work on that day.
That's
Didn't
right,
we read
brother.
that?
Yes, sir.
So now, this is not the weekly Sabbath that we are dealing with here. This is the high Sabbath that we are dealing with here. The first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the day that follows the Passover on which Jesus was crucified. Let's go now and read another account of his crucifixion. Let's go to John chapter 19, and we'll begin reading at verse 30. 19 and 30. Go ahead and read.
When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, It is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost.
Now, this would have been about 3 in the afternoon. So he bowed his head and he gave up the ghost on the Passover day. That's what time we're reading about here. Go ahead and read on.
The Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for that Sabbath day was an high day.
Now, he said, now this is how they messed up this Good Friday thing. This is how they came up with it. They read this, and they see that Jesus died the day before the Sabbath day. So they knowing that the Sabbath day is Saturday, and they see he died the day before the Sabbath day, they said, well, that meant that he died on Friday.
Yes, sir.
But he did not die the day before the weekly Sabbath day. He died the day before the high Sabbath day, which is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Go ahead and finish that verse.
Besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away.
Now, skip down to verse 40. Go ahead and read on.
Then took they the body of Jesus and wound it in linen clothes with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury.
So now they said we got to get him off this cross before the high Sabbath. Now the high Sabbath started at sundown. So now we got to get him off the cross and in this grave before the high Sabbath, before the sun goes down, in other words. So they got him in the grave just before sundown. Go ahead and read on.
Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid.
Go ahead.
They laid there laid they Jesus, therefore, because of the Jews' preparation day, for the sepulchre was nigh at hand.
Now, let's go over to Daniel chapter 9, and we're going to find out what day of the week that he was crucified. Daniel chapter 9, and we'll begin reading at verse 24. Because tradition says that he died and was put in the grave on the day that they call Good Friday, and that he rose on the day that they call Easter Sunday. Well, let's find out what the scriptures said, what day of the week that he died. We know he died on the Passover.
Yes, sir.
And we know they put him in the grave before sundown that day.
Yes, sir.
Let's go now to Daniel chapter 9 and pick it up at verse 24. 9 and 24. Okay, go ahead and read.
70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sin.
Now this 70 weeks, this is all about Daniel was in captivity with the Israelites in captivity down in Babylon, and he was praying to the Lord and asking the Lord what was going to happen to Jerusalem and what was going to happen to his people Israel. Lord gave him the answer. We're not really concerned with all that is said here. We're not concerned with the 70 weeks. We are just concerned with on what day Jesus was crucified, because the book going to let us know that. Go ahead and read on.
And to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness,
Go ahead.
and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
Now, most holy, this most holy that we're reading about here, this is Jesus.
Sir.
Remember, he is the Christ. He is the Messiah. Messiah means anointed one.
Sir.
And Christ means the same thing, anointed one. Go ahead and read on.
Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks.
Go ahead.
The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times.
So he's just letting Daniel know that Jerusalem will be built again, but also he's letting them know as well about the Messiah being anointed. Really, when you understand this, this gives you the year in which Jesus would be anointed the Messiah. That is why he said to anoint the most holy. Go ahead and continue reading.
And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself.
And now we find out about him being killed, but not for himself. Who was he killed for? He was killed for the sins of the people. So now we have him being anointed the Messiah, and we also have him being cut off. And what we're concerned with is what day of the week was he cut off. Go ahead and read on.
And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined.
Now this had to do with some years after Jesus was crucified, the Romans coming and destroying Jerusalem. We're not concerned with that. We're just concerned right now with what day of the week Jesus died on. Go ahead and read on.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease.
In the midst of the week, it said. When is the midst? Midst is the middle of the week.
Sir.
When is the middle of the week? The middle of the week is the day that we call Wednesday. You understand what I'm saying? Jesus did not die on Friday. He died in the middle of the week, which is the day that we call Wednesday. And notice when he died here, he called sacrifices and oblations to cease. Jesus did not nail the 10 Commandments to the cross. The law that he nailed to the cross was the animal sacrifice law. But we're not really concerned with that either. We are concerned with the day of the week in which he died, and that is the middle of the week, the day that we call Wednesday. Now, let's go over to Matthew chapter 12, and we'll pick it up at verse 38. Matthew 12, and we'll begin reading at verse 38. 12 and 38. Okay, Go ahead and read, brother.
Then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we will see a sign from thee.
Now, they came and asked Jesus. They said, Master, we want to see some kind of sign from you. And Jesus going to give them one sign and one sign only. Go ahead and read on.
But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas.
And what is that sign? Go ahead and read.
For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth.
So now, Jesus himself said that he would be in his grave 3 days and 3 nights. Now, if he went in there on a Wednesday, so that kills that Good Friday thing.
That's
right away.
Brother. Yes, sir.
He went in there on a Wednesday. You understand what I'm saying? So now, he had to be in there 3 days and 3 nights. And if you count Wednesday, if you count 3 days and 3 nights from Wednesday just before sundown, it will take you to Saturday just before sundown. We're going to see if the Bible supports that. But first, let's go to Matthew chapter 20, and we'll pick it up at verse 17. Go ahead and read it.
Then came to him the mother of Zebedee, Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him.
Go ahead.
And he said unto her, What wilt thou? She saith unto him, Grant that these my son two sons.
Are you reading from Matthew 20 and 17?
And Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples apart in the way. Sorry about that, brother. And said unto them, Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man shall be betrayed unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death.
Now, go ahead and read.
And shall deliver him to the Gentiles to mock, and to scourge, and to crucify him. And the third day he shall rise again.
So now, the Jews delivered up Jesus, but it was the Gentiles that really put him to death. And he himself said that he would be mocked and crucified, and on the third day he would rise again. Remember, he said in Matthew, the 12th chapter, that he would be in his grave 3 days and 3 nights. And he went in there in the middle of the week, which is the day that we call Wednesday. And if you count 3 days and 3 nights from Wednesday, it will take you to Saturday just before sundown, because he went in the grave just before sundown. Let's go now and see if he came up from the grave Saturday just before sundown. Let's go to Matthew chapter 28 and begin reading at verse 1. Go ahead and read.
In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week.
Now we are dealing with the weekly Sabbath here. Now, you understand what I'm saying? And the reason